So, an Atlanta police officer charged with felony murder for doing his job. Coronavirus has now turned into the blue flu. T-Mobile and other cell phone companies are having massive outages. But hey, it's not hacking. And coronavirus is still here. So the Atlanta police officer who shot and killed a suspect while chasing him after he had a taser pulled on him uh, is charged with felony murder. According to Georgia law, he is facing the death penalty. And the Bureau of Investigations, who do the investigations on these shootings to determine whether it was justified, unjustified. They make recommendations as to like where the law should proceed after that. Completely bypassed. No due process whatsoever for this officer. Did I mention the guy that he shot was a convicted child abuser? So this guy, he was sentenced to 7 years in prison, served one, was out on probation, had multiple counts of DUI, child abuse, long rap sheet of violent offenses. So when he woke up and two cops were tapping on his door saying, hey fella, you fell asleep in the Wendy's drive-thru. Not the parking lot, the actual drive-thru. He's probably like, I'm going back to jail. So here's the real kicker with this case. A couple weeks ago, a group of officers was charged for using a deadly weapon on two people, pulling them out of a car. The same prosecuting attorney who's now going after this cop with the death penalty stated that it was an unlawful shooting because the man with the taser did not have a deadly weapon. Are we just handing out merit badges for people who go to law school? So let's look at these two cases. You have two situations where officers are being prosecuted. One group for using tasers on citizens while pulling them out of a car, saying that they used deadly force, hence the taser. The other one for shooting a fleeing suspect who pointed a taser at him, but that taser was not deadly force. So according to how the law in this country works, one case is going to override the other. So let's say the first case, the officers who used the taser on pulling the people out of the car, let's say they actually go to prison, right? Well, the other case isn't finished yet. Well, then the defense gets to use that case and say, hey, look, over here, you stated this was deadly force. Therefore, this guy had a deadly weapon. The shooting was justified. He gets off. I have a feeling that they're really trying to not let this even go to court. I think they're going to try to do a plea bargain. I think they went with the death penalty so that this cop does not stand trial, which again is another horrible injustice. It's but hey, they do this to black people all the time. I'll admit that. The reason why we have so many black people in prison is because they just plea bargain, because they end up with the public defendant who's like the guy who went to night school and can't get a real job in a law firm, has to take that job. Meanwhile, he's got way too many cases, and he's just like, yeah, you should probably take the plea bargain. Yeah, if this goes to trial, odds are he's not going to be convicted. They show the tape. It's not going anywhere. He really just needs to fight for a trial, a public trial. Don't have this like closed door bullshit. Let's go OJ on this. Meanwhile, last night, several precincts in Atlanta did not show up to work. And the city, in response, tried to say that, they had a overabundance of police officers calling in sick, but that there was nothing to be scared of. They've got enough officers to cover the night shift. Uh-huh. So police officers are calling in. According to some sources, they turned in their badges, turned in their keys, just went home. There's also rumors that members of dispatch, the people who take your 911 calls, they called in. Fuck it, why not? So while all this is going on, CHAZ still exists, or CHOP, or whatever the hell they're calling it now. The city of Atlanta seems to be following suit, and I don't know. I think they're trying to like set a new standard for like, oh, you think you're an autonomous zone with a shitty situation? We'll show you a thing or two. Yeah, the mayor of Atlanta, she needs to have her ass fired. The police chief who stepped down should probably never work in law enforcement again. Um, as police chief, he should have stood up for the officers and pushed for due process as opposed to this mob mentality lynching bullshit that's happening. I mean, fuck, if Atlanta's gonna do this, which in a sense this is a lynching. Like they're addressing the mob and saying, "Hey, what do you want to have done?" And they're like, "Oh, he should be charged with murder." And the district attorney is like, not even looking in the law books and says, "Yeah, felony murder one. Yeah, that sounds good. We'll go with that." At this point, they should probably just put all the Confederate statues back up, start waving the flag, and you know, open up the old Jim Crow laws and change a little bit of wording and just have it be for white people or police in general, because that's where we're heading. So COVID is still here, and last time I checked, there was 19 states that were seeing sudden rises in cases. My city in particular, yesterday, we hadn't had any new confirmed cases in quite a while. And suddenly, yesterday, we had 11. There's 3 hospitalized downtown that I know of. So that means that there's 11 people running around town, hacking and coughing and doing God knows what to, help the cause. My place of employment is opening back up to the public as of Monday. Yeah, I'm excited about that. Not. Meanwhile, I do have to say, because of Governor Whitmer, Michigan was the one state out of all 50 that saw a more than 50% decline in new cases of COVID-19. But then again, last week she also said that she supports Black Lives Matter and the protests. Good job just undoing everything that you fucking did for the last 4 months, you dumbass. So in the state of Michigan, I guess the official policy is protesting is cool as long as it's something to do with anything besides the stay-at-home order. If you protest a stay-at-home order, that's not okay. But yeah, if you're out in the streets protesting something else, that's fine, I guess. Meanwhile, if you tried to go to a hair salon, if you tried to go to church, if you the list goes on and on. Oh, go to the gym. You know that thing that helps your immune system? Yeah, couldn't go to the gym. Those were all shut down. Wanted to go to the park and play catch with your daughter? Nope, you'll be arrested for that. I do believe that didn't happen in this state, but the law still applied here. But yeah, if you go out into the streets supporting Black Lives Matter while COVID-19 is rampant and 30% of the cases in the state of Michigan are contracted by black people who also have a harder time of fighting it off, so there's a higher fatality rate for them. Yeah, it's fine. Just have them go out in the street. They're not going to contract it. It's cool. Seriously, the protest was like a Klan member's wet dream. It's like, how could we finally get rid of these people? And I'm just like going with this on the top off the top of my head here. It's like if there was a conspiracy to have this happen, and they were like, how could we get them to do it and then do it to themselves, and we're not even involved, we just sit back and just watch it. Yeah, have a bunch of rallies during the middle of a pandemic that affects them more than most other people. Native Americans, more so. But nobody really gives a shit about them because they're on a reservation, or, people are pissed off because they lost all their money at a casino, or God knows what else. But yeah, the only time Native Americans showed up on the news was when they shut down the streets around their reservations and said, hey, you know what? We're going to have checkpoints, and you're not allowed to come in unless you answer some questions. But that wasn't cool. However, tearing up neighborhoods, protesting, spreading COVID-19, looting, setting buildings on fire, completely acceptable. This country's fucked. So that's where we're at. We have a cop who's facing the death sentence. That blows my mind. Especially looking over the video, and there's nothing about that video that tells me it was not a justified shooting. Does it suck that the guy was shot? Sure, I guess. I tend to have this philosophy that people are responsible for their own actions, and apparently he didn't get the memo after the first several times that he was arrested and prosecuted and went to prison and abused his kids and drunk driving. And I have zero sympathy for drunk driving because I know a girl who was killed by a drunk driver. And it was her mom's boyfriend, and she was in the car. So, yeah, zero sympathy for that guy. He got caught drunk driving and decided to be an asshole afterwards. So, yeah, that's where I stand. So that's about all I have for today. I hope that every police officer in Atlanta quits their job and walks out. I think that would be completely justified at this point. The mayor and the rest of the government in that city can pretty much go fuck themselves. And same thing with Seattle. I didn't like Seattle when I was there a couple years ago. I felt like it was an overpriced shithole. Looks nice, but yeah, there's like a weird contrast between the hippy dippy bohemian movement and the big money from Microsoft and Google, and when when you have incompetent government like that, yeah, the residents there, they just need to stand up and say, you're fucking fired. We'll get somebody else. Hold an emergency election. Put fucking Raz in. Why not? Just go all in. What's the worst that can happen? And on that note, keep on typing.